Hey, what's going on, guys? My name's Daniel and welcome to my channel. I'm so glad that each and every one of you are here. Today we have another spectacular, fantastical episode. Today's episode is all about marriage. What a beautiful, wonderful topic. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about 4 lessons that I learned while reading books all about marriage. I have personally been married to my wonderful, beautiful, amazing wife for 3 years, a little over that actually. And as an avid reader, of course, with marriage being such an important thing, I've read a fat stack of books all about marriage, the do's and don'ts, things that you should know before you get married, questions you should ask before you get married, the 5 love languages, the love dare, love and respect, love, 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 I love you more. A ton of great, wonderful books. So for today's episode, I kind of wanted to boil down 4 major lessons that I learned while reading through all of these books. That way I can share with you, the viewer, the beautiful, wonderful audience, some of the important lessons and values that I learned from all of these books. So before we dive into these very special lessons, feel free to smash that thumbs up, give me that like button, and then also smash that subscribe button to stay tuned for more episodes. Then also all of these books that have given me all of this wonderful, great wisdom will be down in a link in the description below. If you wanted to check these books out, absolutely feel free. So let's dive right on in to the 4 lessons that I learned from reading all of these wonderful books about marriage. Lesson number 1, if you want to be married, if you find somebody that's the love of your life, you enjoy being around them, your heart pitter-patters as you're in their presence, they have all the makings of an excellent spouse, somebody that you know you can spend the rest of your life with, it is important that as you go into marriage that you set up expectations. Now, I know you may be thinking, what are you talking about? Are you saying that I don't know what my job in marriage is, what I'm supposed to do and what they're supposed to do? Believe it or not, this was something that caught me by surprise. Setting up expectations is a very valuable thing that you and your spouse can do to make your marriage more seamless, to move along more smoothly. This is a very foundational step to a happy, healthy, fulfilling marriage. Now, what do I mean by setting up expectations? I mean, very simply, we can start with who does what. Does the husband take the trash out? Does the wife do the dishes? Will whoever did the last dish put the last dish in the dishwasher? Will they do dishes? Setting out ground rules so that nobody has to wonder who was supposed to do this, who was supposed to do that. When everybody has a proper job in the household, everything is always completed on time, or at least so you hope it is. Don't ask my wife about that one. Everything is completed as it should be. Everybody knows what job they have, what role they play, and there's no questions. There's no unnecessary arguments as to why didn't the trash get taken out? I thought you were going to do it. I thought you were going to do it. No, when everybody knows what their role in the marriage is, they're able to fulfill it as they should without having expected the other person to do it. Now, this can go far beyond simply what chores you're supposed to do. You can say, well, the husband is the financial provider, but not only do they provide, but they also organize the finances. For me specifically, I make most of the money. I say what investments we do, but my wife, because she's as brilliant as she is always in charge of taxes. So every year we know who's going to be doing what. And so there's no confusion, no frustration. The expectations are completely laid out before us. So if you're sitting there thinking, I definitely will not have any trouble with this. My wife will know exactly what she's supposed to do, and I'll know exactly what I'm supposed to do. It's great that you believe that. That's super awesome. I just want to let you know that you're in for a rude awakening. Setting up expectations is a wonderful, intelligent thing to do in every marriage. You're welcome. Moving on to number 2, the second absolutely valuable lesson that I learned from reading this nice stack of books that I have beside me is that everybody is different and has different needs. I think it's very common that, you grow up and maybe let's talk about the 5 love languages, for instance. You grew up and physical touch was always your thing. And so you shower your spouse in hugs and kisses and you hold their hand. And then you find out one day that they have not been feeling like they were loved at all. And you're like, that doesn't make any sense to me because I did all the things that I would want you to do for me. But it turns out everybody's different. Just because that would make you feel loved doesn't mean that that would make them feel loved. A couple of really great books on the topic are Love and Respect. Right here, this talks about how men need respect while women need to be loved at the core of who they are. It talks just a little bit about gender differences. Because if you go into your marriage thinking that your wife will respond to things exactly the same way that you would, it just isn't going to happen that way. Simply because men and women are different, but also because each individual has a different personality. They were raised differently, and so they will react to things differently. Another great book a lot of you have heard of is The 5 Love Languages. This goes into how different people receive love and why it's important to show your spouse their love language. My wife's major love language is acts of service, while mine is more quality time and physical touch. So it definitely was very important for me to recognize that even though doing chores doesn't mean anything to me, it's very important that I do these things in a timely manner because that's the way that my wife feels loved. So in brief, what fulfills you just might not fulfill your spouse. All right, lesson number 3. The third valuable lesson that I got from all of these books is the importance of fighting fair. Not one of these books ever said you shouldn't fight. They never said that you should avoid conflict at all costs, that when something is boiling up inside of you, that you should push it deep down inside and let it eat you alive. Most of these books at some point bring out the importance of clear, concise communication and resolving conflicts in a peaceful manner. This doesn't mean that you can never get somewhat heated. This doesn't mean that you can't ever get passionate, but it's important to not let your emotions override the purpose of the conflict. One point that really hit home for me is that every time you enter a conflict, it is always about creating a solution. You never, ever fight to win. Never. It's not about you. You don't get into a fight to tell your spouse how wrong they are. You don't get into a fight to make yourself feel prideful and bloated up and, oh yeah, well, I won that one. Absolutely. No. When you're in a conflict, your aim, you and your spouse, are together working as a team to seek resolution. And your conflict, the fights that you have, should reflect that. There's a ton of great tips on how to really de-escalate the tension at times. Sometimes you need a break. Just because you need to go on a walk doesn't mean you're walking out on the problem, doesn't mean you're walking out on the marriage. It just means you need to simmer down before you can reevaluate the problem. It's important to not name call. It's important not to bring up the past and to say, I remember when you did this, I remember when you did that. Fighting fair is very important because conflicts will always come up. You and your spouse are not exactly the same. You have different wishes, desires, styles, techniques. The most rudimentary things can cause conflict simply because you stack dishes in a different way than your spouse. Believe it or not, these things happen, and having the proper skills to address conflict will help you get through this. My favorite book that addresses this issue is From This Day Forward by Craig Groeschel. Craig Groeschel is a very eccentric guy. He's actually a church pastor, and I think that he does a great job of giving tips and tricks of fighting fair, including some of his own personal stories of how he had to learn these lessons for himself. All right, so we're on to the fourth and final lesson. This is a very transcendent value. This is a very key principle in having a happy, fulfilling, lasting marriage, and that is that marriage is about more than you. I think that modern day culture preaches that in every relationship you should be trying to get what you can for yourself, that it's about me, 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 and that's simply a toxic ideology. Whenever you go into marriage knowing that it's about more than you, it allows you to have a heart that's more selfless, that is full of grace, because you and your spouse are not perfect people. Before you go and judge your spouse, take a look at yourself and remind yourself all of the flaws that you have and why you really should be giving them grace in the situation. The less that you make marriage about what can I get out of this, the more fulfilling and purposeful your marriage is. To create a simple ultimatum, you can really think about two sides of a coin. Marriage could either be about you just being happy and you trying to get everything out of it you can to make yourself feel good, or marriage can be deep and purposeful. Marriage could make you grow as a person. Marriage can teach you lessons, but marriage wouldn't be about you in that instance. When marriage has a purpose that's greater than yourself, it causes you to tend on the side of grace, on the side of selflessness, and even when your spouse isn't perfect, you still treat them fairly. You still treat them with love. You still treat them with respect, even though inside you may feel like they don't deserve it. That is the real way to a long-lasting, fulfilling, happy marriage. To add an extra bullet point, I would say that marriage is often about sacrifice. Yes, you may want something, you may need something at this moment, but if you're able to give that up in order to reach a compromising point with your spouse, then both of you in the end will be more fulfilled and happier. The one book that I think explains this way better than I ever could is Sacred Marriage. This book is absolutely incredible and has taught me so much about how marriage is more about me becoming a better person, my wife becoming a better person. The book specifically says, what if God designed marriage to make us holy more than to make us happy? This book, Sacred Marriage, does a great job of showing myself that marriage is about so much more than just me and me getting what I want when I want, as long as I'm happy. Marriage is so much more about myself. It's about the couple as a whole. It's about my spouse, and that involves sacrifice. That involves having grace and showing kindness and love to my wife, even when I feel like I didn't get what I deserve. So those were the 4 major lessons that I learned from reading all of these books. So I'm just going to be spouting off a few titles to get you inspired, give you some ideas. But I also have a completely different video about 3 must-read marriage books up above. Go ahead and follow that. But in the meantime, I'm going to give you some ideas right here and right now. So I read The Sacred Search by Gary Thomas. Gary Thomas also wrote the incredible book Sacred Marriage. So he's a great author. I mean, he's writing a lot of really wonderful books. He's pretty much dedicated his research towards marriage and helping couples grow as individuals and grow as a couple. So I definitely recommend anything by Gary Thomas. I also read Things I Wish I'd Known Before We Got Married. This is a book that would clear up a lot of confusion and hardship as you're going into marriage. Another really popular book is The Love Dare. This is a series of daily challenges to just help you get closer and grow in your marriage. An extremely popular book that teaches you about how you and your spouse might be different are The 5 Love Languages. And another really great book about how men and women are different is Love and Respect. This is an absolute must read. It's really good. I've read For Married Men Only. It's a tiny little book, easy to read. And then the title of this book is something that I tell my wife on a daily basis, I Love You More. And then the last book I'll bring up is a book that our marriage counselors gave us, and that is Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts. And this book gives you 7 questions for you and your spouse to answer before and after you get married. So after reading a ton of marriage books, a lot of them have a lot of overlap. A lot of them maybe will just discuss, what are his needs versus what are her needs. And there's a book called His Needs, Her Needs. Some of them are more about how to have a functional marriage, really dealing with conflict. Some books are all about intimacy and sex. Some books are more about the spiritual aspect of marriage, but a lot of them really share a lot of the same concepts. So I hope that you learned something today. I hope that you gleaned something from the 4 valuable lessons that I learned from reading all of these books. I hope that you pick a good book and start reading it for yourself. The whole point of reading these books is to have a happy, fulfilling, purposeful, lasting marriage. So it's definitely worth it to pick one of these books up and go through the pages with your spouse. So as always, if you enjoyed this video, smash that like button. If you're having a good time on this channel, stick around, stay a while, hit that subscribe button, and be notified for more future videos. And also, if you want more content from me, you can follow me on Instagram. The link will be down in the description below. All of the books that I'm talking about today will be down in the description below. You can go ahead, follow a link, and get the book for yourself to learn how to have a happier, more fulfilling, purposeful, lasting marriage. That's all I have for you guys today. I hope that you all have an absolutely fantastical, wonderful day. Have a great day, guys.